The Precinct is a fun sandbox simulator that gives you a different perspective from all the mayhem you've been causing in countless other games. Hello, my name's Dove and I love video games, especially indie titles, and The Precinct by Fallen Tree Games is one you might enjoy, so let's dive right in. It's a great callback to games like Police Quest and, of course, the early Grand Theft Autos, although with a nice graphical enhancement. Although structured through the day-to-day routine of the job, the game allows the player a lot of freedom in selecting how they want to approach each day. It allows the game to not get repetitive quickly. And after decades of being a no-good thug from the Grand Theft Auto series, it's a lot of fun to chase the bad guy and be on the other side of the equation. Now, let's go back to the beginning of the development studio Fallen Tree Games, which began in 2012 in Nottingham, UK. Joe Moulding and Lewis Bodel are recognized as the founders and began working on their first title, Quell, which was released on the Android and iOS. After releasing multiple different iterations of Quell along with some other titles, the studio released American Fugitive in 2019, which was a departure from their normal format. American Fugitive was an open-world sandbox game where you played as a fugitive on the run in the 1980s. It was a lot like some of the early Grand Theft Autos, and they even mentioned Grand Theft Auto Chinatowns as one of their inspiration. And as you can see, American Fugitive and The Precinct share a lot of the same DNA, although on other sides of the law. As of late 2023, there were only 5 employees of Fallen Tree Games, so we are definitely going to flag this as an indie game despite being published by Quell. The game takes place in the early 1980s in a made-up American town called Averno City. The atmosphere feels dark and gritty and reminds me of some of the old-school 80s action movies. And, of course, while cruising the mean streets, I can't help but think a lot of the old Law & Order shows. The point of the game is to rank up your rookie into a formidable ranking officer, and there's a number of different storylines threading their way throughout the game, including the mysterious death of your father, the ongoing gang violence, and a homicide investigation that includes a serial killer. The main protagonist, Nick Cordell Jr., is pretty basic and doesn't have much of a backstory outside of being a generational cop trying to figure out what happened to his father. Although I enjoyed the story, the main character feels a little hollow when it comes to the background. It's not always a bad thing, as it gives the player a little more freedom to make their own story going on, but it wouldn't hurt to give the main character just a little bit more of a background. When it comes to the actual gameplay, the on-the-ground controls of the game are pretty solid and intuitive at the same time. While they're not perfect, they'll be pretty native to anyone who's played any third-person action game like Grand Theft Auto in the last decade or so. The actual simulation aspect in navigating through which infractions you're going to apply to each person is intuitive as well, and once you understand the overall procedure that you need to follow, it's going to flow very easily for nearly all gamers. The real crux of the game is applying the proper crimes to people that you apprehend, and luckily the controls work really well when you need to check the policeman's handbook to figure out what you should do in any particular instance. When it comes to the vehicle controls, they're pretty much the same as the many third-person action games you've been playing. For the cars, just press L2 and R2 to either accelerate or decelerate respectively, or change it up however you see fit. When it comes to the helicopter controls, they're way more forgiving than most games, including GTA, where one brush with the wrong sapling tree will take down your $1 million helicopter. Again, a lot of the controls are really intuitive if you've played these style of games, and even if you haven't, they're very forgiving. At the end of the day, the controls are not going to be an issue for most gamers, and I think their intuitiveness or standard to the genre is a real plus for the game. The Precinct is an open-world sandbox police simulator, and it definitely hits the mark as that. This open-world game where you're given the freedom to police a procedurally generated neighborhood that has a life of its own is a lot of fun. Clearly you can see the inspiration from Grand Theft Auto, and I have to say, it feels like you're one of the random cops on the many chases from that GTA wanted system. While in the chase, one of the coolest features is the option to call support from all angles of police work. It kind of feels like escalating the star system. Call for some more officer backup while you follow the perp on foot. If they hop in a stolen car, call one of your own and get some cruiser backup or that chopper in the sky. to follow him around after a couple of your own cruisers crash into you. It has the feeling of all the mayhem from the Grand Theft Auto chase, but you're just on the other side. And that's why I really think this game succeeds in being the antithesis of a classic Grand Theft Auto game. While the chases are a lot of fun, I think the lack of variety from the vehicle aspect kind of hurts things a little bit. Most of the cop cars can only reach a certain max speed and don't always handle great around corners either, especially if you're trying one of those pickup or station wagon variety of cop cars. The Speed Demon Cop Cruiser is only available towards the end of the game or if you get high enough rank, so you're left with just the basic cruisers. You can commandeer any vehicle once you get the right level, but even the fast vehicles aren't as durable as cop cars, so if the chase entails any kind of collision, you're gonna be out of luck real quick. So again, you're pretty much stuck with just one car in chases. The simulation aspect is probably the most intriguing part. You'll have to pay attention to the rules and procedures for how to handle each infraction and how to properly apprehend and arrest people. Most of the crimes you come across are very cut and dry, and there's not a lot of dialogue, so you don't have to worry about any kind of gray area. It's just very black and white. This person did that, so they either get a ticket or they'll be arrested. Appearance-wise, the Precinct is more of a retro game, but it has the earmarks of a more modern-day series with the controls and the multiple endings. While I recommend this title, even the best games have a few things you might want to watch out for or steer clear of. For starters, it's not a huge penalty if you mess any of the police activities up, to be honest. You're just going to lose a few XP points here and there. Having said that, there were a few issues with some of the crimes and some of the resolutions. Most common for me was a hit on the scorecard for letting a suspect escape. There were a few times where both suspects would split up, and at the time I hoped my partner would do something useful, but he wouldn't. Now beyond that, there were many times where I literally chased down, tackled, read rights to, and handcuffed both perps, but after arresting one or calling for an escort, I was told that I let one of them go. This wasn't an isolated incident either. It happened in many callouts, but at the end of the day, the XP that I lost is pretty negligible. Outside of a few quirks here and there, I can see that the biggest strength of the game also might be a reason some people could not enjoy it. Let me explain. The procedurally generated crimes and all the things happening get to be a bit of a routine. And although that's a very accurate simulator, doing the same tasks multiple times is going to, by the very definition of it, become repetitive. I will say the game does a great job of randomizing things, the characters involved in the crimes, the way they commit them, and the time they commit them, and it all just feels so organic. If you're not into that kind of repetition, in the game's defense, the freedom and autonomy to pick and choose your routes and the crimes you investigate pretty much balance things out, but we'll talk more about that later. While you're working day to day patrolling the streets, the game's really immersive. The only time it breaks from that are a couple of really cringy scenes. One spot in particular, and it only happens a few times in the game, where there's a bunch of officers in the same room talking. It's just really forced and quippy, and it has that cringe feel that's not funny in a Curb Your Enthusiasm kind of way.
But before you all charge into the blue, I want to introduce you to our newest tender lamb fresh out of the academy.
Bah! Where's Bo Peep when you need her?
Yeah, I could tell you where she was last night.
This officer graduated from the academy at the top of his class.
Yeah, that and 50 cents will get you a cup of coffee.
And
Luckily, those scenes are few and far between, as the game nails down the dark and gritty tone from those old 80s action movies. The music also hits. It feels like a 1980s action movie, with the hint of a GTA background music. It works absolutely perfectly. Unfortunately, there's no radio stations to turn to, and it's pretty much just random obligatory police chatter until you get your direct calls out. The realistic cartoon style was the right approach to go with. It takes away all the uncanny valley issues, but still gives a gritty, lived-in, fully realistic city. Look, if you're looking for a good old-fashioned cops and robbers game where you are the cops chasing after the bad guys, this is a great game to play. The retro vibe is there, but the handles are very solid, yet forgiving at the same time. With the procedurally generated crimes that pop up on your daily routes, you can quickly get carried away cleaning up the streets. The Precinct does a great job at making events just unfold naturally. And while there might be some repetition with how you finish the procedural aspect of these encounters, they all start off and evolve in their own way. There's just a lot of freedom to roam your streets. Your shifts are your own. You can choose the location, the type of patrol you'll do, and even which vehicle and equipment you're going to use. Honestly, it allows you to pick and choose whichever crimes you want to pursue. And at the end of the day, it's a lot of fun to chase bad guys, but it's also a lot of fun to pick when and where you do so. And the Precinct gives you that freedom. Depending upon how you play or use that freedom, this one can be finished in under maybe 15 hours or less if you're really focused on the main objectives. But if you're like me, you'll probably get sidetracked with a lot of random crimes and unpaid overtime. There are a lot of gamers who will enjoy this one. Retro game lovers, especially the older GTA games, are really going to get a kick out of this one, as long as they don't mind being on the other side of the chase. So, if you're interested, check out the Precinct, available on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and PC. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hitting the like button goes a long way towards bringing you more content like this. And consider becoming a subscriber if you're not already. We have more videos like the one you just watched, and we have a weekly indie news video as well. Thanks again for watching, folks. Until next time, this is the Dove.
Call for backup!
Assistance is available.
You have the right to remain silent.